All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Standard 11C. You guys are going to be able to examine events related to the rise, aggression, and human costs of dictatorial regimes in the Soviet Union, Germany, Italy, and Japan, and identifying their major leaders: Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, Emperor Hirohito, and Hideki Tojo. All right, essential understandings. Economic disruptions following World War I led to unstable political conditions. Worldwide depression in the 1930s provided opportunities for the rise of dictators in the Soviet Union, formerly known as Russia, Germany, Italy, and Japan. A communist dictatorship was established by Vladimir Lenin and continued by Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union. Totalitarianism. It is a form of government that takes total, centralized state control over every aspect of public and private life. So the root of the word is total. Total control. Total. Most totalitarian governments are led by a dynamic leader who can build support for their policies and to justify their actions. To dominate an entire nation, totalitarian leaders adopt policies of control and persuasion, including terror, indoctrination, propaganda, censorship, and religious or ethnic persecution. So the first one we're going to talk about is police terror. Totalitarian dictators use terror and violence to force obedience and to crush opposition. The police are there to enforce government policies. They are not there to protect the people. The second is indoctrination. The use of instruction in the government's beliefs to mold people's minds. They control education, and it's going to build unconditional loyalty and support. It's a type of brainwashing. Third, we have propaganda and censorship. Totalitarian dictators spread propaganda, which are biased or incomplete information used to sway people to accept certain beliefs and actions. And they're going to censor what is out there in the media, either written in a newspaper, put up on a poster, and set over radio broadcasts. And the fourth, we are going to have religious and ethnic persecution. Totalitarian leaders often create enemies of the state on whom they blame for things that go wrong. These scapegoats are usually religious or ethnic groups. All right, so let's dig into Joseph Stalin of the USSR. So Vladimir Lenin, he's going to suffer a stroke in 1922. So between 1922 and 1927, Joseph Stalin is going to begin his ruthless climb to the top of the Communist Party. By 1928, Stalin was in total command, and he stood poised to exert absolute power as a totalitarian dictator. Stalin aimed to create a perfect communist state in Russia. So to realize his vision, he planned to turn the Soviet Union into a totalitarian state. Here is a picture of Joseph Stalin, where the USSR is located, again, formerly known as Russia, and here is the flag. All right, totalitarianism in the USSR. First one we have is the secret police. They're going to use tanks and armored cars to stop any protests of the government. The phone lines are going to be monitored. Mail was going to be read. They're going to control all the newspapers, the motion pictures, radio, and other sources of information. All education is going to be controlled by the government, and religion was outlawed, and it's going to be replaced by communist ideals. We're going to have state industrialization. So here's a quote. It says, "We are 50 or 100 years behind the advanced countries. We must make good this distance in 10 years." So basically, within a decade, they have to industrialize that entire country, the USSR, to get with the program. So they're going to have a command economy where all economic decisions are going to be made by the government. An example of this, Stalin's 5-year plans. The development of the Soviet Union's economy, they're going to set impossibly high quotas to increase the output of steel, oil, coal, and electricity in order to build the USSR's industry. To reach these targets, the government limited production of consumer goods. As a result, people faced severe shortages of housing, food, clothing, and other necessary goods. Okay, we're going to have agricultural revolution. The government seized over 25 million acres of private farms and turned them into collective farms, which are government-owned farms on which hundreds of families worked, where they're going to produce food for the state. All right, this last little bit here about Stalin, the Great Purge. It was launched in 1937, and the Great Purge was a campaign of terror directed at eliminating anyone who threatened Stalin's power. Thousands were sentenced for crimes against the Soviet state, and they were sent to labor camps and executed. Between 1937 and 1938, it is estimated that Stalin had more than 8 million so-called traitors executed. I think this sounds a little familiar, putting people who are being blamed for something into labor camps and executing them. Hitler, maybe? Here are some pictures of this Great Purge. Here is a gentleman crouched down over a mass grave where he is going to be shot, and his body is just going to topple over into the mass grave. Here, more execution. Up here, hard workers at those labor camps. All right, moving on to the next little bit. Essential understandings. The Treaty of Versailles worsened economic and political conditions in Europe, and it's going to lead to the rise of totalitarian regimes in Italy and Germany. So, fascism, one of our vocabulary words, what is it? It is a militant political movement that emphasized loyalty to the state and obedience to its leader. Fascism has no clearly defined theory or program, but most fascists, they share several ideas. So, ideas of fascism. They're going to preach extreme form of nationalism or pride in one's country. They believe nations must struggle and that peaceful countries are doomed to fail. They have loyalty to an authoritarian leader, and they're going to pledge their loyalty to that leader. They're going to deny individual rights, and they're going to state that the state is supreme and that each social class has a specific place and function. All right, in Italy, we have Benito Mussolini. Mussolini was a newspaper editor and a politician who promised to rescue Italy by reviving its economy and rebuilding its armed forces. In October of 1922, 30,000 fascists are going to march on Rome. They demanded that the king put Mussolini in charge of the government. And the king decided that, well, Mussolini is the best hope for the government. So Mussolini is going to rise to power legally. All right, here's a picture of Benito Mussolini wearing his military uniform. Here's the flag of Italy underneath Benito Mussolini's rule, and Italy. Remember, it's shaped like a boot. All right, Mussolini's fascist leadership. Mussolini is going to go by the nickname Il Duce, or the leader. He abolishes democracy, and he's going to outlaw all political parties. The secret police is going to jail all of his opponents. All radio stations and publications, they're going to be censored and broadcast only fascist doctrines. Strikes were outlawed. And Mussolini's ambition, his goal, was to restore the glory of Rome back to Italy. So back to her ways of ancient greatness. All right, Italian invasions. Mussolini is going to lead Italy to Ethiopia, which is located on Africa's continent, in 1935. Mussolini is going to attack the Ethiopians. Spears and swords are going to be absolutely no match to the modern Italian army. The Ethiopian Emperor Haile Selassie, he's going to appeal to the League of Nations for help. But as we all know that the League of Nations, they have no military reinforcement, so the League could only condemn the attack, but they could do absolutely nothing to remove the Italians from Ethiopia because the League has no military power to enforce their decision. So here's a map of Africa with Ethiopia in this darker brownish orange color, and that is where Italy, with Benito Mussolini, they're going to get onto the African continent and take over Ethiopia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now 2/3 of the way done with Standard 11. Our next flip class video, number 46, we are going to talk about Adolf Hitler, Emperor Hirohito, and Hideki Jojo. And we are going to be done with Standard 11. If you have any questions, come see me, ask me, don't hesitate. I'll see you all on the flip side.